April 18th, 2018 meeting of the Concord City Planning Board. We'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
I will. Chairman Woodfin?
Here.
Vice Chair Foss?
Here.
Member West?
Here.
Member Fox?
Here.
Member Hicks?
Here.
Member Regan?
Here.
Member Rosenberger?
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. We'll open the meeting. We have our item 3. Our first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the January. Should that say
February.
February? We'll approve
March.
It says March.
No, mine says March.
Mine says January.
Oh, that's the notes. Sorry. It's on the agenda, March.
Should not go
I
by the
apologize.
notes.
I apologize.
Should not go
March
by the
25th.
notes.
Sheet.
Approval of the
21.
minutes. If anybody'd like to make a motion
I'll
to
move
approve
approval of
those
the
minutes.
March minutes.
The March minutes. Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Got a quick couple of announcements here. Items 6B and 6C have been removed from consent and continued to the May 16th meeting. Item 6D was removed from consent for the public hearing. We'll address that tonight. Item 6H, the Warren Street Architects ADR application, removed from consent and postponed. No date certain on that application. And item 7E, the Burris Minor subdivision, continued to May 16th. Also, just if there's anybody here regarding the Carter Hill subdivision on our agenda tonight, that subdivision is before us tonight for a determination of completeness. It'll just be a determination of completeness, which means the staff has looked at the application, it's determined it complete. We vote on it, there's no public testimony, and the matter will be addressed at the next meeting. So with that, we'll move on to item 5, determination of completeness by consent for,
5A.
For 5A and 5B. Anybody, the board members, like to pull one of those items from consent or address them in totality? Any member of the audience wish to pull one of those items and address it? So if we have no questions on those, we'll address item 5 on a consent motion. If someone would like to make that motion?
So moved. Second.
That motion's been made and seconded. Right?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We'll move to item 6, design review applications by consent. We have taken off again 6B and 6C. 6D is removed from consent as well. So we're going to be addressing 6A, 6E, 6F, 6G, and 6H. Any member of the board like to pull any of those additional items off? Oh, 6H, is that Warren Street Architects? Has that been postponed? That's been postponed, sorry. So that's been postponed.
So it's
So it's G,
A,
F,
E, F, G.
E, E, F, and G.
F and G.
Any member of the audience here to address any of those applications? No? Any member of the board wish to pull any of those? If not, we will entertain a motion to approve those on consent with ADR recommendations on the signs.
So moved.
Second. Motion's made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. So we will now address, we've pulled B and C, right? So we'll address D, right?
Yes, correct.
So can we read that into the record, item 6D?
Item 6B. 201 South Realty Trust requesting ADR approval for a new wall sign at 201 South Main Street in the Urban Commercial District. Just to give a little summary of this, so last month, ADR made some recommendations. The applicant came back to the planning board with some revisions. The planning board wasn't comfortable that would be approved by ADR, sent the applicant back to ADR. He went to ADR again last Tuesday with another revision, and they made additional recommendations, which he has brought tonight and I believe passed out to all of you. He made printed out one yellow with black background and one white with red background to see which one the board would prefer. I think ADR was fine with either of those.
Okay.
I think the yellow one that
We'll open the public hearing and invite you up to come on up. If you could state your name for the record.
Pavan Patil.
Great, and thank you very much. If you could go ahead.
So I think ADR already approved, which this is the yellow one, which is we going to go with that.
Correct.
So there will be no any additional comments on that, right?
So this is the one he wants, the other one.
The yellow one, right?
Is the yellow one the one you would prefer, or is the white one you would
No,
prefer?
prefer with the yellow
Yeah,
one.
okay, and that's the one the ADR was okay with, too.
Okay. Any questions of this applicant? Any member of the audience wish to address this sign application? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any additional comments from staff or the board?
Nope.
Somebody like to make a motion to approve that sign as submitted, the yellow sign as submitted? That motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. You're all set. Thank
Thank
you
you
for your
very much.
patience, and
Thank
you did it the right way, so we
Thank you.
appreciate it. Okay. All right, and I've completely lost my agenda.
7A.
A second.
We'll keep challenging you.
What's that?
We'll keep up the challenge for you.
We'll keep up the challenge, yeah, we'll keep on doing it. So moves aside to item 7 on our agenda, site plan subdivisions, conditional use permits and applications. Could we read item 7A into the record?
Item 7A is VHB Associates on behalf of the City of Concord Recreation Department requesting major site plan review in accordance with RSA 67454 for a multi-use athletic field and other amenities at Terrell Park on Old Turnpike Road in the Residential Open Space District. And there is no determination of completeness component. This is for recommendation purposes from the board.
Okay, any staff summary?
Sorry. Wasn't ready. No, we've been working closely with VHB and Parks and Rec. This has gone through multiple reviews through council and RPAC. So I think they're going to present to you tonight the permit documents. I think, yeah, not much else to say.
Okay, we did get I did get an email today. I don't know if it's pertinent, should be read into the record. Oh dear. Stand by. Dick Lemieux, did Dick Lemieux send?
He sent an email to Councilor Champlin, and he ceded some planning staff, and we were intending on deferring to Councilor Champlin, whether he wanted that read into the record or how he wanted to handle that, but he's not here this evening.
Well, he sent it to me too.
Oh,
so-
say, okay, so if
So I'm
you would
gonna,
like it, go
I'll
ahead.
choose to read it into record, even though he asked how the summer was going for Byron, and I'll skip that part. He's under the impression that the application for permits for Terrell Park projects specified that the existing walking trail is to be left unpaved. I also see the project is on the agenda for tonight's planning board meeting, item 7A. The report to the planning board says the planning staff has asked the plan to be marked with a note calling out the pathway along the river as, quote, future Merrimack River Greenway Trail by others, end quote. This is very disappointing to me, and I know it will be disappointing to other trustees and the people who have been hoping the city will step up and have a more supportive, be more supportive of the trail. Dare I say assertive. I think the city should recognize that the project has great value to the residents. It is worthy of resident investment, especially where there is an opportunity to roll it into a larger project. I know that action the planning board will be taking tonight for the future, but I would ask that you take these steps to ensure the paved trail gets included in the upcoming Terrell Park project now with the city funding, not the others, futures by unspecified others. Thanks as always. Submitted by Richard Lemieux, who's currently the chairman of the Transportation Policy Advisory, Friends of the Merrimack River Greenway, and countless other things. So note that for the record if we could, and let's open the public hearing on this. Is the applicant here? Come on up, guys. Welcome, Mr. Gill. If you could state your name for the record.
David Gill, the City of Concord Parks and Recreation
All right.
Director.
And who's with you tonight?
I have Dave Vestermaker from VHB, who is, VHB has been contracted for about past year and a half from the city to do the design work on behalf of the City of Concord.
Great. Tell us about the project.
Sure. We have a little PowerPoint. I'll start, and then I'll turn it over to Dave. He's the expert. I think everybody's familiar with Terrell Park. It's down on Manchester Street. It was a park, a very small park, when the state put in Manchester Street Road. The roadway, Old Turnpike, was moved to the east. The city applied for land and water conservation funds, and we purchased basically. You can kind of see where the old roadway was. Here's a pointer right down in there. So everything to the south, the city did purchase that with land and water conservation grants about 25 years ago. The site has had very little recreational use over the years. We do have the city's only dog park there. There is an existing trail along the riverbank, and the large dirt area used to be the snow dump for decades. About 3 years ago, the city stopped using as a snow dump because it was time to remove it out of a park. So it's no longer a snow dump. Terrell Park has been talked about probably about 15 or 20 years regarding what amenities to include. I think in the past it has shown a very large stadium with artificial turf field and parking for about 400. That has been reduced, rescoped. I think the plan now is more of a recreational asset. It does potentially anchor the Merrimack River Greenway Trail. They are hopefully doing some work on phase 1 this fall. So the synergy to do some stuff in Terrell Park is pretty exciting. So here, quickly, here's the proposed master plan. We have worked, again, with city staff of both planning and engineering, as well as the Recreation Park Advisory Board and City Council. It does have, shows on the left-hand side an artificial turf field, parking to the south. We do have future plans, and we are showing this would be the full build. Picnic shelter, bathrooms, and maintenance facility. Some nice open green space. We do move the existing dog park to further up to the upper parking lot. We do show, Councilor Mew did come to the Recreation Park Advisory Board. We do show and label the Merrimack Greenway Trail on this map. We do show it as paved. The current agreement that the City Council has with the Merrimack River Greenway Trail is a 100% private donation process for the Greenway Trail, so we did not include that. If City Council changes that, we did show it there because at future years it should be there. But right now the funding is 100% donations. Have any questions? Any thoughts? Anything to share?
Just to go over, hopefully everyone can hear me all right. Some of the components that we're looking at, just to highlight the field and the parking, that'd be a standard parking field, but what we did is worked to incorporate some overflow parking. So what we didn't want to do is have too much pavement sitting there all year round. So we've sized the parking accordingly for the uses that we anticipate there. But in case there is a larger event, we do have overflow parking, which would be a reinforced grass piece in this corner. And we also put in a bus turnaround as well if there's an event that will have people getting dropped off on buses. So, just to walk, I know Dave walked through it, but the dog park, existing dog park's up here. We're going to relocate down here, improve that existing parking lot that's down here. This is that the greenway, the trail, the new piece that's, I think, going to be under construction.
I think they had a pre-bid meeting last week, so it's hopefully this summer and fall they'll be able to start that parcel.
Yeah, so the goal was always to incorporate anything we were doing in with the trail, see them, being uses that go together. And the ball field with lights, the utilities are all going to be coming off of Old Turnpike Road. What's also shown on this plan is the future improvements at the intersection, the 2 right turn lanes. These are not part of this project, but we wanted to show is that the design accommodates that in the future without having to go in and make any changes retroactively on site. As part of that, not only did we integrate that, but we made sure that we put the driveway in a point where that would be incorporated into that future plan. And in advance of that improvements, the existing driveway was down here. We wanted to make sure we pulled it far enough away from the intersection to, minimize the traffic impacts going in and out of the site. So I think between the two of us, we covered just about everything.
Okay, questions? How many, 165 parking spots? Is that right?
Yeah, 134 paved, 31 in the overflow.
Okay.
We have 20 over at the head, and then there's an existing lot that you can see on this plan. There's some existing spaces at the trailhead as well.
So you meet the requirements as far as bleacher suites. Where are the bleachers going to be in relation to the large field? Just
They'll be right there.
right there.
We're thinking about 150.
And what's the size of the field? Is it looks more square than it is like a football or lacrosse?
Well, it's 260 by 360. So what we did is it accommodates, the largest field is a women's lacrosse.
Yeah.
So it accommodates that, but what this really does is accommodates, practice time. This is, we're extending the season for practices and extending the times. And you can really break this out into
2 or
4 or
3.
6
Yeah.
usable spots.
Okay.
So this is really a full soccer field heading this way with lots of opportunities to go the different directions.
And that would
be lit?
It's going to be lit.
And that was one of the requests when we met with all the leagues, is trying to make it multi-purpose, multi-use, so you can go from one sport to the other with very little time change or movement of goals. And
Can't you heat it too? Why not?
that's a recommendation from planning board. I think we can consider that.
All right. Any member of the audience wish to address this application? I'm supposed to send you back, but I'm going to let you stay right there for a minute. Is that okay? I'm going to close the public hearing. Have you stay right there. Oh, I'm sorry. Not going to close. Leave the public hearing open.
I'm assuming you're going to plow it as well in the spring.
Yes. The benefits of artificial turf field, this is obviously, I think St. Paul's School has one in Concord, and that's the only one, is you can actually plow it in the middle of winter. Most of the other turf fields in the state, they were actually playing sports on them in early February. So it does allow, extends the season here, especially this past spring. We would have been playing in February, and then you get a snowstorm, you'd plow it, you let it sit for a day, and then you can actually play on
The
it.
baseball teams don't have tryouts in a gym.
Correct, and lacrosse and everything else, so it adds to the season.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes, good. Carol?
I can't read the fine print from
yeah.
here, but do you have bike racks included somewhere there?
Yes.
Yes, we do. We're putting them down in this area so that they can come off the trail as well as come off the roadway.
And then I think the pale yellow circle is playground?
That's what we're thinking for a playground spot.
Okay, what's the oval above it?
That's like a picnic lawn.
Okay,
Yeah, it's okay.
I said that good.
And then there's another spot reserved for future amenities.
And then another exciting piece from the recreation side of life is we did incorporate, it's kind of new and exciting nationwide, is we did a couple of workout stations along the proposed Merrimack River Greenway Trail. So if you look 5-10 years from now, and say the Greenway Trail is built from Loudon Road to Manchester and maybe beyond, I mean, people are going to use it for biking and walking, but it's also have this outdoor year-round fitness equipment that people can come and enjoy, and it just adds to the quality of life, once it's all built.
That's great. Okay, any other questions? Questions from the staff? So this falls under RSA 674-54, so we don't address anything as far as conditional use permits, waivers. I saw our note in here on Conservation Commission. I think they had weighed in and didn't have any issues other than some shoreline stuff that they wanted to be in the loop. We have waivers for a couple of items. Do we have to do anything with those, Heather?
Essentially, we like to document the requirements that would be applicable, and they've kind of addressed all the issues with those, with CUPs and waivers. So there's no actual motions that you need to make,
Okay.
but they've been working with us to, work through all the issues that would normally.
So all the items under 3, as far as 3.1 through 3.6, you guys are working, or 3.9, you guys are working on those and can work with them directly, right?
Correct.
Dumpsters, things like that, okay. So we don't have any recommendations other than what's been presented, is that correct? Am I assuming that? So-
Right, unless you have anything to add?
And what was the clarification on the paved portion that was addressed in the letter that we had received? So it won't be paved or it will be paved?
Well, this is the approved master plan that we're working off. We are showing it as a paved trail. And we actually label it the Merrimack River Greenway Trail. The current agreement that the Greenway Trail has with the city is all improvements for the Greenway Trail is private donations and grants.
Yeah.
So we're not proposing it, and this, if it would get funded, unless city council weighs in and changes or improves that relationship. So we're not showing it as paved per se in our budget and everything, but it is on the master plan to be paved at a future date by, right now it's others, based on that relationship.
Okay.
Yeah, so just to clarify, for the permitting documents right now, because it's gone through shoreland and wetlands permitting, since it hasn't been fully funded, it was a decision by city administration to not include that at this point, the paved portion with Terrell Park, so keeping it as a separate project for now.
Okay.
But it's been considered as part of the whole planning for the project. So I think that's what Dick's concern is, that it wasn't, and that, I knew that was, the Friends had a concern that it wasn't part of the permitting, but it was just a council decision to not include that portion of the trail in the Terrell Park project at this time.
Right, and we understood the final layout and the final widths, and our engineering has accommodated all those for the future builds.
So easily paved?
Yes.
Okay, just pay for it.
The good thing is VHB is also working with the Merrimack River Greenway Trail for the design of the complete trail. And then we also have VHB under contract for the design of Terrell. So some of those design things are done. We knew the width, we knew the depth, but we just, until city council and city administration agrees on the funding source of the Greenway Trail, if it's going to be partially in the city or in the park,
Okay.
we did not, staff did not make that. That's
Okay.
for their decision.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so I think we don't have to do anything. So we've been heard and don't have any recommendations other than what you've got. Good luck with the project. It looks great. Can't wait to see it.
Great. Thanks for your time.
Thanks,
I didn't
guys.
even show our last shot. That's the the rendering, so.
Oh, we don't like that. Wait a minute, let's back.
We have comments.
That looks
Do
great.
you need us to officially sign in? Is that
That'd be
what
great,
that's
thank you.
Yes, if you could, that would be great.
Tower that's going to be built.
Lisa doesn't know how to spell Fenster.
No, I don't know how to spell fence to marker. Or Gil.
It's difficult.
Okay, so that takes care of item 7A for us tonight. We'll move on to item 7B, if we could read that into the record.
Novus Engineering, on behalf of St. Paul's School, requesting conditional use permit approval for clearing and grading within the Shoreline Protection District. This is associated with construction of a temporary construction platform over the Turkey River at 325 Pleasant Street and the institutional district. Staff does recommend that the application be determined complete and the public hearing opened.
Okay, so we got a determination of completeness component. Staff has recommended the application be determined complete. Somebody like to make a motion to accept that recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. The application has been determined complete, and we will open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Come on out. We get a quick staff summary on this, if we could?
Sure. It's a pretty simple project. Most of the impacts are most of the impacts are temporary. It's required to provide access to the exterior of the building. Just the way the building is situated on the Turkey River, it's impossible for them to access without impacting wetlands or the shoreland area. They came to the Conservation Commission last week. They had no comments. The commission was assured that the applicant was working with DES to deal with the reestablishment of the shoreland protection area through that process, and staff didn't have any other concerns, so.
Okay. Great. If you could state your name for the record?
I'm Chris Netto with Novus Engineering on behalf of St. Paul's School. And again, the west side of the power plant was built back in the early 1900s, right on the edge of the river, right up against the water. So in order to rehabilitate the brickwork and the windows, we have to build a platform for the workers to work from, and also build a platform for the crane to deliver materials to the workers. So with that, happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Okay. Any questions from the board? No? No questions from the board. Any member of the audience wish to address this application? No? It looks pretty straightforward. I don't see anything on here that raised any red flags on my end. Any issues on staff side? I don't think there was. I think everything was straightforward. So before us is a recommendation under 3.1 in our agenda to grant conditional use permit as outlined there with the 50-foot wetland buffer, precedent condition A, 1 and 2, and subsequent condition B, 1 and 2. Would somebody like to make a motion to grant that conditional use permit as outlined?
May I ask
Yes,
a
oh, sure.
question?
I had asked for questions, and you
I
didn't
know,
say
I
anything,
just,
so I'm moving on.
I just got there.
Okay.
In Suzanne's absence, I feel compelled to,
You got a tree question coming, Chris, you
to
know it.
inquire.
He thought I got off that.
I'm just curious about what the vegetation is there now.
Sure.
And what the plan, I can't read the fine print on this either. I mean, just having driven that road for many years before they closed the road off, just because it is a riparian area, and a lot of times there are fruit-bearing shrubs in those areas that are fairly important to birds.
Yep.
Just curious about what you're planning to put in.
And I have pictures here if you'd like to see them. Basically, there's 9 mature trees there that we have to cut down on the bank, and basically alders and brush along the edge of the river that we're gonna clear out. But we're gonna save the duff layer and any underlying vegetation. Either we're gonna remove it and set it aside to be put back, or we're gonna put the gravel pad over the top of it, so when it's removed, the natural vegetation can take back over on the banks. And then we're planting an additional 23 trees of various species to replace the 9 that are lost.
You might consider some of the native dogwoods in that mix as well.
Sure.
Okay.
Good point. Suzanne will be proud.
You did good.
We'll find out.
We'll tell.
She'll answer me.
Okay, so again, our, in our packets under 3.1 is to grant conditional use permit as outlined in precedent conditions 1 and 2 and subsequent conditions 1 and 2. Would anybody like to make a motion to grant that conditional use permit as outlined?
I will make that motion.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. You're all set?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, 7C, granite ledges, minor site plan improvements. Can you read that into the record?
7C is Keach Nordstrom Incorporated on behalf of Capital Regional Healthcare Corporation, Granite Ledges, requesting an amendment to an approved site plan for a 778 square foot building addition and new patio construction at 151 Langley Parkway in the institutional district. And staff does recommend that this application be determined complete and the public hearing opened.
Okay, we have a determination of completeness component, so we will entertain a motion to find the application complete and open the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll open the public hearing. Invite you guys to the table. If you could state your name for the record.
Yes, good evening. For the record, my name is Jeff Merritt. I'm a professional engineer with Keach Nordstrom Associates. We are the civil site engineers and land surveyors for this project. With me this evening is Amanda Normandin. She is from Normandin Associates and is representing the applicant, which is which is Genesis Healthcare. What we have for the board this evening is an amendment to a prior site plan. This is in relation to the property at 151 Langley Parkway. This is where Granite Ledges of Concord is located. Granite Ledges is an assisted living facility. They are located in an institutional district. Concord Hospital is right across the street on Langley Parkway. They're right down at the very end. They have about 71 units there today. You may be familiar with this because we were here a few years ago, actually, and we did a small dining room addition right in this corner of the property. That has since been constructed. It was an amenity upgrade, and it's been well received. It looks very nice. The residents are happy with it. The application tonight is kind of similar to that. It's another amenity upgrade that we're proposing. And it's on this corner of the property, or this corner of the building over here. There's an existing courtyard out there today. There's a vestibule right there that leads to the courtyard, and we're proposing to work just in that area. If I move to a blow-up of that area, you'll see what the addition looks like. It's a 778 square foot addition, again, located in that back side of the building. You won't see it as you enter the property. It is on the rear side of the building. Residents only will see it. It's one-story addition. The building that's out there today is multi-story, but this addition is a single-story, and it's a living room addition. So again, it's an amenity upgrade only. And you'll see this area here on the outside, right in through here, that is a covered porch. The prior addition that we did for the dining room a few years ago had that as well, and you can picture a porch out there with a concrete pad open with a view of the courtyard. That's what this will be as well. And in addition to that, if you look at this area, this hatched area right through here, we're proposing some upgrades to the courtyard area there today. And this will be a paver patio, so that the residents will have a place for seating, gathering, recreation outside, if the weathers would allow them. We do have architectural plans for the project. Let me get to those. Just want to show them very quickly here. Go over this plan. So if you look closely here, this thick line right here, you can see that. That's the edge of the enclosed building addition that will be enclosed to the weather. This outer line right here that wraps around like this is the limits of that covered porch that I mentioned. It's about 6'8" or so in width, so you can have seating under there. All totaled, again, 778 square feet of addition. For the prior project, as well as for this project, we are requesting 3 waivers for the project. These waivers were the same ones that were granted for the dining hall addition. The first waiver is a waiver from section 2208, and this is in order for us to not have to provide a full stormwater analysis. We're seeking this waiver simply on the fact that this project is very, very small. The net increase in impervious area is very small. We did run an abbreviated stormwater analysis just to prove that there wouldn't be any adverse impact relative to stormwater, and that was submitted to the city. But we don't believe a formal report would provide the board with any further beneficial information. So we request that the board consider granting that waiver again. Similarly, there is a second waiver, which is from section 1208, 1503, and 1504. Those sections of the ordinance are relative to the vertical datum that the city requires the plans to be on. This project was originally built prior to the city's adoption of their vertical datum requirement, and the as-built drawings that were prepared for this site, which are the basis of the work that's being done here, were done on an assumed datum. So for consistency's sake, and because of this project is small in scale, we'd like to continue to use that vertical datum that's been assumed rather than regenerate a new vertical datum, which wouldn't match the old plans. And then lastly, we're requesting a waiver from 1207, and this section requires a delineation of on-site wetlands. The area that we're working in is fully developed. It is a courtyard area. It consists of either building, addition to vestibule, a paved walkway, grassed areas, and some mature landscaping. It is not undeveloped area. We're working in very confined space here, so we'd ask that the board consider granting that waiver as well. And that's it. The small project, amenity upgrade only. No increase in bedrooms out here, just an amenity upgrade. Amanda and I would be happy to answer any questions if the board has any.
Okay, any questions? David?
Just quick, I have to recuse myself.
Okay, so noted. We still maintain a quorum, so we will continue on. Any other questions?
Leave the table if he's recusing. You're supposed to leave the table.
Just slide
Oh.
back.
Just slide back. You're dismissed.
Okay,
Thank you.
any questions to this applicant? Any member of the audience wish to address this application? Nope. Okay, would anybody like to close the public hearing? Any additional discussion from staff? Looks pretty straightforward. So in our recommendations under 4.1 is to grant the waivers outlined, 2208 for stormwater design standards, 1207 for wetland delineations, and 12.08 for electronic submissions. Why don't we take that one and put that to a vote? If someone would like to make a motion to grant those waivers as outlined.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4.1 carries and is approved. 4.2 is to grant architectural design review approval for the construction of the 778 square foot addition. I'm going to take that one and 4.3 together, so we'll grant 4.3 is to grant minor site plan approval for the construction of a 778 square foot addition. We'll note precedent conditions 1 through 4 and subsequent conditions 1 and 2. I did see an engineering staff notice there too. Is that addressed in one of those conditions? The designer should consider adding stone outlet protection at the proposed flared end section. Is that in there somewhere? Right here. So the note from Bryant on the 6th of
Yeah,
April.
under precedent condition 2, it
Precedent
says
condition
address the planning and engineering.
Okay,
division.
as long as that's in there. Okay, so someone would like to make a motion to grant, for 4.2 and 4.3 to grant architectural design review and minor site plan approval with precedent conditions and subsequent conditions as outlined.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. You're all set.
Thanks a lot.
Great,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. Okay, let's move on. What are we at? We are at 7E, Irving Oil. 7D, sorry, Club 55, amendment to plan. If we could read that into the record, Madam Clerk?
RNL Properties, Club 55, requesting an amendment to an approved plan to allow a duplex where a clubhouse was originally proposed and conversion of an existing multifamily structure into a clubhouse for the residential development at 61 Borough Road in the single-family residential district.
Okay, with no determination of completeness, so we will open the public hearing, invite you to the table. If you could state your name for the record.
Hi, Ron Richter with RNL Properties.
Okay, tell us about this change to the plan.
Okay, I'm calling it the improved version. The approved plan was, is this too loud? Am I saying something? Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, good. So the original plan consisted of the existing multifamily, 3 units, and a new construction of 16 units, 4-unit single-story buildings, and a clubhouse. And to make it more desirable for, I guess, both the neighborhood and more desirable for feasibility purposes, the clubhouse, instead of building a clubhouse there with parking that would be facing the neighborhood, I would use the existing multifamily building as a clubhouse. I was actually in the unit, and I was postponing the project because the feasibility really with building a new building, a new clubhouse building, with the cost of it not getting any income, made it very difficult. And to be honest, I was just inside that house, and I said, this is just a beautiful clubhouse. It was actually much nicer even than the proposed new building. It's the Four Winds property. You might know it. It's been there for many years. It has some, I guess, historical characteristics to it as well. But there's some large rooms inside it. This fireplace is in there, very nice. Library, large kitchen, beautiful dining room, big porch on the back. Are there any? There's no pictures of that. Is there? So I brought with me. So okay. So you can see the building to be used as a clubhouse. And then we made a nice floor plan that actually allows for a lot of extra space for hobby rooms and crafts and cooking and whatnot. Is there a place I should put the picture or pass it around? So you can see it wants to have a large...
Just pass it.
Yeah, okay. So this is... I got one picture from inside, and I have the outside of the building from the back with,
Thank you.
With the porch.
So.
So
can we,
basically-
Can we, hang on a
Yes,
sec.
sure.
So can we get a quick staff update on what was approved and what we're changing?
Okay.
Sure.
No, I'll let
Okay,
them-
oh, I'm sorry. Beth, you wanted, did you
Yeah.
want to say? Okay, Thank you.
I'll stand up and just put, so. On the original plan, back here was the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And this was going to remain the 3 existing apartments. So it was 16 new units plus the 3 existing units, so it was 19 total.
Yeah.
So now, with the, making the 3-unit house that he's sending pictures around is going to be a clubhouse. So converting it from residential to a clubhouse, there won't be any residences in there. And then instead, doing 2 new units back here. So we
Okay.
went from 19 units total to 18 units total.
Okay, so on the plans here that I'm looking at, the electronic plans that I'm looking at, so page 1 shows that right there. Page 2 shows the next section with a kind of a green oval. You see that on your plan set? I just want to make sure I'm looking at the same thing. So is this the revised plan? Because
Yeah, you're just looking at the, there you go. That's the blow up of the plan. That's a kind of blow up of the
Right,
plan.
right.
But yes,
okay,
that's the revision.
that's the revision.
There's nothing really changing about the site at all.
And the building's still going to be back here. It's just going to be apartments as opposed to a clubhouse.
Yep, so utilities, layout, everything's remaining the same. The parking around the cul-de-sac will change because they're not required to have as many parking spaces back there as before.
Where is this building?
That's the existing building.
On the very
Right.
left-hand side? So
Yep,
this,
yep,
the
correct.
brown, okay.
Yep.
Well, this is a beautiful clubhouse. Why didn't you start with this in the beginning?
That's how I was going to do my presentation. I was going to come in and say, why didn't I think of that?
Put those in the record.
A little hard there.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. No.
ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's what's before us.
And the other minor change that we did too is we moved the sidewalk closer toward the 30 Pines area to the other side.
Okay.
I don't know if you see it. And then we're also going to relocate the bicycle rack.
Okay, so those were two
Goes to the
comments the
mailbox.
staff made. You're going to
Oh, yes, we'll do
You're going to
it.
extend the sidewalk, all the way down to the mailbox.
Whatever
You said.
staff asks for, we do.
Okay,
Thank you, they're great.
okay, and relocate the mailbox, the bike rack. Okay, any other comments from staff on that?
Nope.
No? Questions from the board? No? Any member of the audience wish to address this application? Boy, getting away easy tonight. What's going on here? Knock it, don't jinx it. Okay, so under our
Oh, and we're
recommendation.
going to change everything to 3 stories, I forgot.
We're gonna pave everything, right, all the way to the edge of the lot. Okay, so let's look at this, under recommendations, we've got, 3.1 is to grant architectural design review approval for the proposed duplex building and modifications to the previously approved plan. Let's take that separately, if we could do that one, if somebody'd like to make that motion to grant architectural design review approval.
Move approval. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 3.2 is to grant approval,
Not to interrupt, can we make a motion to get David back on the?
oh, yeah.
We had to sort of
So
be an
I
official.
just took it upon myself to move
we'll,
back.
Yeah.
we'll make a motion to bring David back in. If someone would like to make that motion. No, we don't need to make a motion,
you
so
don't need- you just
you're
need to-
back, David.
You just need to announce that he's back as
You
a
are
voting
back
member.
in and you have unrecused.
Now you can vote on this
That's
motion. That's good.
Unrecused. So let's take up item 3.2 here, is to grant approval of the modification of the approved, grant approval of the modification to the approved major site plan to relocate the clubhouse, construct a 2-unit residential structure in the back, and associate modifications. As part of this action, indicate that all conditions of the original approval and amendment shall remain in force and in effect. That's bold-lined and underlined in my little notes here, so I need to make sure that that's been noted. And with that, under precedent conditions, we've got 1, 2, and 3. Subsequent conditions, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If someone would like to make a motion to grant that
I'll make that motion.
approval of the
I'll second it.
modification as outlined. That motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Is that good? Lisa? Looking to Lisa.
Second?
Yep, second was made. I think Ian made the second. Yep.
Thank you.
Ian always makes the same.
Ian always,
If he doesn't.
Ian always comes out of
make
the
it.
session. And with that, you are good to go.
I third that motion, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night. Good luck with your project. Good luck with your clubhouse. It looks very nice.
Thank you, yeah, we'll have some fun.
All right.
Additional comments on this
Yep.
that aren't in the report when we get to it.
Okay. All right, you want to read item 7E into the record?
7E is MHF Design Consultants Incorporated on
good.
behalf of Irving Oil requesting minor site plan approval to replace the existing underground fuel storage tanks, relocate several parking spaces, and expand the sidewalk at 114 Fisherville Road in the General Commercial District. Staff does recommend that this application be determined complete and the public hearing opened.
Okay, we've got a determination of completeness component. Staff has found the application complete and recommended we open the public hearing. If someone would like to make a motion to
Ian? So moved.
to determine
Second.
that
Second.
complete. Sorry, I was in
I'll second
mid-thoughts.
Ian.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We'll open the public hearing. Can we get a quick staff summary on this? Because that's what it says in my notes here, so.
Sure. They're basically proposing to make some improvements to improve for the stormwater. They had to replace the tanks. Actually, it might be better in this case to get the applicant up here to the technical details of what they're doing.
Okay.
And then they are widening the sidewalk, and all of this together was enough of a site impact for us to do the minor site plan approval. And we can go through the comments as we get through them.
Okay. Welcome to the table. If you could.
I have a color rendering, but I can go over it on that.
Okay.
That's fine.
You could state your name for the record.
Good evening. For the record, Hussein Sevinchkil with MHF Design Consultants out of Salem, New Hampshire, representing Irving Oil. It's an existing Irving Oil gas station that's been there for a while now. Store, 3 and an overhead. The existing tanks are in this area. Older tank. And basically prepared a plan. So 5 existing and they decided to do the planning department for minor site plan approval, and we needed a modification to the existing, I believe, and it's a conditional use permit, I guess, now. So as part of this, the existing parking spaces in front of the tight fueling to get out. We made a recommendation to the right side of the building, expand the sidewalk around the front and the right side of the building. So we have a 3-foot sidewalk. I'm going to go with a 6-foot sidewalk along the front of the building. Makes these movements safer than they currently are. In this area, we would replace the 3 existing underground storage tanks with 2 new double-wall fiberglass storage tanks for the dispenser islands. The canopy would remain. Again, the C-store would remain. All signage would remain on site. As part of the New Hampshire DS review process, we're going to need to upgrade the existing dispenser mat that's on the ground, the concrete dispenser mat. So as part of that, we're proposing some spill containment grooves that are on the ground. If there's a spill at the dispensers, they would be contained within the areas that are around each dispenser. Again, parking to the right side of the building, handicap, 2 additional spaces, and then the existing spaces on site would remain and be restriped. Some drainage issues on site. There's some ponding in certain areas of the site. The pavement's older pavement, cracking, settling in certain areas. So basically, the entire site would be
resurfaced and repaved in certain areas. Our proposal, again, is to propose a new catch basin in this area that would tie into the existing stormwater system. That would catch some of the stormwater here. One of the staff comments was to enclose the existing dumpsters, which we agree to do. So we would propose a roughly 12 by 26 trash enclosure, chain link trash enclosure with privacy slats and 2 gates for the dumpsters in this area, which would take up 1 parking space. So I believe the site requires 11 parking spaces. We're providing 18 with this layout. We would not then be providing 1 less, which would be 17 spaces. Again, we received staff comments. There was some concern about this area, and I guess this area initially. These 2 areas, I confirmed, are used for deliveries. There's a side door here, another side door here for, I'm not sure what deliveries occur in which location, but just deliveries to the store. So we would like to maintain this area for, you know, the box truck or whatever to back up, maybe drop in this area and then get it into the building. There were other comments, scale missing on the plan, which was frozen, I guess. A few other things that didn't make it to the plan set, but overall, I think positive recommendations from the planning department.
Okay, anything from staff?
Yeah, I wanted to just add, so I sent you an email just this evening. Did you happen to catch it?
Briefly.
Briefly. So I finally got out there. If you check the supplemental material, you can see photographs of the site. So I finally got out there and saw that there's actually hardly any landscaping in any of the beds that are actually on the property. And I felt really silly for not noticing that sooner and addressing it and having a conversation with you. But then I'm looking at the pictures and realizing why I didn't gather that, because from these pictures in the spring or the summer, whenever they are, it looks like there's some vegetation there. So I had sent you an email letting you know that I was going to mention to the board that there's actually very little, almost no landscaping on the actual property. And in particular, where that ends up being an issue is with the frontage of the property. So a pretty steep slope there, but not so steep that it won't support vegetation. It looks like they did at one time have some shrubs there. So I'm going to add a recommendation to my recommendations that they provide some landscaping, at the very least along the frontage, which could just be low-growing shrubs, like ground cover shrubs or some.
Along the site frontage?
Yeah. So
there is a slope.
Right.
You did notice that slope.
Oh, yeah,
so
I noticed
there's a public
the slope.
sidewalk and then quite a bit of a slope to get
Yep.
down.
So you'd have to plant something that's going to be okay there, and there are plenty of things that, I mean, you have some stuff there. It looks like most of it
A few, yeah.
that maybe died, or I'm not sure, but I would just add a recommendation that landscaping be provided along that frontage. I would recommend that you have a landscape architect take a look at it, but since it's, we didn't address this with you earlier, and you don't have a landscape plan as part of your submission, probably an engineer or whoever you had do your plans, probably you yourself, if you did the plans, add some landscaping in there. But something just to, I mean, it's just pretty stark. And of course it's stark right now because there's nothing out there.
Right.
So it looks very open. And I'm glad you have that you have agreed to do the dumpster screening. I sort of forgot that I had that in the comment, so it's in the email, but disregard that. So the dumpster screening is a good thing, because there's residents right immediately adjacent.
There, yeah.
On both sides, there's residents right immediately adjacent. So it's kind of harsh for them in the winter and in these times when there's just nothing there. So I would recommend, at the very minimum along the frontage, to provide some landscaping for aesthetic purposes, not necessarily for screening purposes. But along the back there, if they could put some, something back there as well, some evergreen type stuff. It's 5 feet that you have back there, so you should be able to put a couple evergreen shrubs that would function for screening, that would be more of a year-round residence. 2 corners.
The back corner in this corner, so we would be putting enclosures. Notice I went and we're in August and
Right.
totally different. So
Right, yeah, I went out there.
I
and
did
was like,
notice
"Oh,
that.
this up." But I would say just some shrubs maybe along, and maybe just here, because you do have an entrance to a residential building just right there. So this is not such an issue, but maybe evergreen shrubs there.
Well, I think too, you're back up there on your left-hand side of that, that's where the steep slope is on the left, right?
The steep slope
This-
is
right
on
there.
the
Right here.
front
It's right
edge.
there.
Yeah,
So you're talking just some low,
whatever's gonna grow,
just
it's a very
something-
steep slope.
something.
But and in fact, putting something there will probably help stabilize the slopes too, so. If you put something that'll
Yeah,
grow there.
we'll reach out to our landscape.
Perfect.
And we can handle that as a condition, correct?
Yes, yeah. Is there a sidewalk? So,
There's a public sidewalk along the front, and then the back of sidewalk basically butts up against our property
so where
line.
does snow goes onto the sidewalk and then gets pushed over the banking? I'm just thinking.
I hope not, but
5
yeah,
years down the road,
probably.
you know, we're gonna recommend probably putting some shrubs in there or putting some low growth in there, but something that's gonna be hardy.
Yeah. Use should survive.
Okay.
They're super slow growing.
Use.
They're slow growing.
Use. Okay. I'm not even gonna ask if there's any member of the audience. I don't think there's anybody left. So we have, any member of the board have a question regarding this application? No?
Actually,
Yep.
I do have one, more curious than anything else. Double-walled fiberglass storage tanks
Yep.
underground, how long do they last?
Very long time.
Yeah.
Longer than
50
the,
years, like 100?
I'm not sure, but they've been around since the late 80s, and we haven't had anyone replacing any of the double wall fiberglass. Before they had steel, single wall steel, state mandated all those be removed by the end of 2015. So, yeah, double wall fiberglass tanks and double wall piping.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, so any other questions from the board or the staff? No? So where do we want to put that in?
I would put it as precedent condition 4.
Okay.
Evergreen landscaping be provided around the perimeter of the parking lot.
Okay.
Just one, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
The one condition about kind of removing this area, the landscape,
Yep.
pavement in this area, I think I addressed that.
Yes. So is that I don't think that was in any of your.
That was one of the,
That was a comment 3.1. It's not included in your.
I thought it was one of your conditions,
Yeah, it's
first
revise the
condition.
site plan to indicate a landscape bed with low-maintenance plantings
Okay.
instead of a striped area in the northeast corner of the building. Is that what you're talking about?
So let's just change precedent condition 1 to say revise the site plan to indicate landscaping around the perimeter of the parking lot.
Okay, and strike out the rest of it as far as the,
Yes.
okay.
When
You
I
want-
saw that
well,
when I went out there too, they had a bunch of stuff stored in that area. Sort of.
So how about, I mean, low growth, low maintenance, okay, we're good, okay, so everybody got that? Changing precedent condition 1? Okay, so we've got before us, 5.1 is to grant conditional use permit. Why don't we take that as we close the public hearing first, so we're doing things the right way, we'll close the public hearing. No more additional comments, and then we'll look for someone to make a motion to grant conditional use permit under 5.1, if someone would like to make that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 5.2, grant minor site plan approval for redesign of parking lot layout, including construction of a new sidewalk, relocating and restriping parking areas, subject to the following precedent and subsequent conditions. So precedent condition 1 has been changed and revised to include plantings around the perimeter. Precedent condition 2 and 3, subsequent conditions 1, 2, and 3. Would someone like to make a motion to grant that minor site plan approval as outlined?
So moved.
Second.
That motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I got it.
Opposed?
I think you can tell the site.
That motion carries, and that'll do it. You're good to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Letting go.
Okay,
There's other people.
so there's other people. You don't want to spread the wealth, Ian. Item 7F has been
Continued? Yep.
continue to the May 16th meeting, so we will address that on the May 16th meeting. And that brings us to other business, under item 8, which is the Main Street Guide update.
Yes.
Making strides with the Main Street Guide.
Yes, we are. So I did schedule a public presentation at the Red River Theater's space for Wednesday, May 2nd at 7:30 in the morning. I'm going to be sending an email invite to all of you, as well as City Council, as well as the Architectural Design Review Committee. I hope people come just to support that we did this work and to help give answers if people have questions, or just to support the project that we worked on. It will. Our new public information officer will be, I think, notifying the Concord Monitor, as well as we sent out a blast on In Town Concord to try to reach the business owners on Main Street. We have a mailing list from the Main Street construction project, so we're going to send it out through that as well, and then we'll also be sending it out to the chamber. So all of this is really an attempt to target specifically the Main Street business owners, and it's scheduled at a day and time that I was advised would be best for them to make it early in the morning before those businesses open, from 7:30 to 9. So the purpose of the meeting is to present what we did and get some feedback, and also float the idea of some regulatory or just policy changes to our applications to better regulate some of those things that we proposed in the guidelines. Yes.
Are the people from Texas that did the presentation, are they going to be part of this?
No, this was the document that was really produced by ADR that we presented to the planning board. We had those special meetings, we met with ADR, so it's that document.
7:30.
And we presented it to council. So after we give this presentation and gauge what the public feedback is, the intent is to make some changes, whether they're just changes to certain applications to allow the city to better regulate sandwich boards or other things, or whether there's some regulatory changes that we want to propose, and we'd go back to council with it. And at that point, we would come to the planning board with all of this having done and just officially adopt the design guidelines with any changes that have been made as a result of this process.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure everybody will be there. May 2nd, 7:30, Red River Theater.
I'm going to send the email blast out.
Okay. All right, let's address item 9, OSI Spring Planning and Zoning Conference.
Yes.
We have 2 registered.
Yep, we've got 2 of you guys registered. If anyone else would like, it's a Saturday. It's a day-long conference that's just really helpful for new members, or just brush up on the basics of being a planning board member, or being a member of a appointed or elected board. If anybody else wants to go, we have money in our budget, so we will pay for it. And please just reach out to us, and we'll help you get registered. And the deadline for registration is April 20th, so it's actually Thursday. Yeah, or is it?
Friday.
Friday. So Friday's the deadline for registration, so please let us know, and we'll help you do that.
Okay, and any questions on that? And item 10 is the Central New Hampshire Planning Commission appointments.
We did.
Yes, we did that.
We did that?
So we did have a misunderstanding. So last month, we approved the appointment of the planning board members, but there's a really odd, the RSA is written in a really odd way, whereby the planning board actually approves also the council members.
Nice.
So council is
I want somebody
respectfully requesting that you approve Councilor Hirschlag and Councilor Shurtleff to be the council representatives to the CNHRPC.
Do they know it?
Councilor
Yes.
Hirschlag was there with me at the last one, so I
Yes.
hope he...
Well, he was previously, so he's getting reappointed. Yeah. So that will take a
Councilor
motion.
Hirschlag knows, Councilor Hirschlag and Councilor Shurtleff, you said, right? And they both know it? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so
I'll
someone
make
like, Matt Hicks will make a motion.
Ian will second it.
I will second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Any other business to come before us legally before the board?
I
Nothing
do.
else?
I do
Yeah?
have one more thing.
Okay.
Introduce.
Yes, we were going to do that. I do have
Wait
one
till
more.
the end so
I
the
do have
public-
one more thing, but I would like to introduce Sam Durfee, our new senior planner. He comes to us from RPC.
We stole him, they told
We
us.
stole him right out from under them. He helped us out with our easement monitoring for the past 3 years, so we've worked with him, and we're super excited to have him.
Thank you.
This is his first week, so this is his 3rd day. So,
We'll see if he shows up tomorrow.
yeah. So, yes. Okay, so what she's passing out to you, we saw this a few months ago. And at that time, the recommendation and what I had proposed was to not allow internally illuminated signs in the Central Business Performance District. And we had said, yes, let's do these changes, these few changes, but we'll wait for Jim Kennedy to do some changes that he needed to do in response to a Supreme Court case. Jim Kennedy has since said, no, I'm not going to get to this for months and months and months. Meanwhile, we really need to get ours in there for the sign ordinance because of the applications for Main Street that we're getting. Also, after that time, our consultants came and said, no, you're doing this all wrong. You want to allow internally illuminated signs, but you want to allow them this way. You want to not allow the entire sign to be lit up, but allow channel letters or backlit letters that are, so I've provided you with an example of a page out of their guidelines, which is what, in the language on the bottom that's outlined in red in a box, which is how they regulate it. So they say you're allowed to have this, and the pictures on the bottom left are 2 examples of internally illuminated signs that, that meet those requirements. So the background's opaque, the letters are illuminated, or channel letters, obviously, with backlit. So they suggested that, and I think we had talked about it at one of our meetings, I believe the message was, yes, let's do it that way, and ADR is also in favor of doing it that way. So I made a minor modification to the ordinance, which is the other thing that was passed out to you, which basically incorporates that language into our sign ordinance. So my hope is to get this on the May council agenda for a June public hearing, and I just wanted to bring you guys in the loop, let you know the change that I made. And this is consistent with how ADR has been implementing or acting on ADR applications in the past few months.
And this will be part of that application to the council, right?
It will not, but, well, I can give that as an example, just to show them.
I mean, they're visual, so they're going to want to see.
I could put across the top example or example ordinance.
Take out this if you want, and just leave the examples.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good idea.
So take out that, because just say, this is what we're talking about.
Right.
You can do this, you can do this, you can't do this, maybe.
Yep, that's a great example. That's a great
So
example.
which ones can we do? Can they do?
You can do all of them.
Any of them that are on that page.
So external at the top, internally channel lit in the kind of the middle.
Backlit.
And then the backlit, and then the darker background, opaque backgrounds. So that Barton's.
What's the definition of channel lit?
Channel lit is the Chico's. Oh, no, wait. Is Channel lit? Channel lit is the East Point Mall. I think the East Point and the Bershka and East Point are channel lit. Chico's is backlit.
Because you put this together, do you support this?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all I need.
I'm providing it in support of what we're proposing.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to let you know, is that good? Can I get a yay on that?
Yeah, you get a yay.
Okay.
You get a yay on that.
One back to give to the.
Sure.
Yeah, you don't have to print.
Sure.
You don't have to print them
I will
again.
collect
Save the
all-
company, save the city a couple of bucks. Put them all in disarray in different order, though, so she has to reshuffle.
Thank you for your patience. I realized I didn't have that on the agenda because I whipped it together.
We went past 8 o'clock, so we were shooting for an 8 o'clock start.
Oh, it's Heather's fault.
I'll take the blame.
Okay, we will
You got a
entertain-
one more matter.
A motion to adjourn.
I'm not making a motion, I have a question.
Oh, you do,
Yes.
okay.
I did it. Going back to item 8, the conference, in the event that an individual is unlikely to be able to attend, is there a way to access any of the materials from said conference?
Yeah,
So,
I'll look into.
I'm gonna go, so if there's handout materials, I'll make, okay.
okay, I'm just,
If there's
Just
handout
bring 'em in
materials,
and
I'll
we
make
can-
sure we bring them back and.
Usually
Am I
they put presentations
confirm me?
available online
It
for
is,
the
okay.
people
Did you
who
not get my
went,
email?
so perhaps they can share.
There was some
okay.
gray area there, wasn't there?
I replied to you and said you're all set.
Oh, okay.
You're good to go and paid.
And paid.
You have to go.
Okay, Mr. West, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion,
Or would you like to second David's motion to adjourn?
I'm getting out of this.
John's been hanging out,
All right, somebody make a motion to
I
adjourn.
move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made, roundly seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Carol's been
Thank you.
quick with the seconds tonight.
I won't vote
she's been
against
on
it
it.
today.
I'm gonna get real close to that.